Cheers and salutations. Welcome on all to Americans Learn. My name is Kit. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit that ring bell notification. That way all of you are made aware when we upload new content upon our YouTube channel. Get ready. We have one on the Eastern Front, and now we push forward on the Western Front. That's right. We're turning back with Eastory, who has done phenomenal work. So please be sure to follow their work on social media. Please be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe to their content. The original link to this video is in the description box below. So be a hip, cool cat, do the right thing, and follow them. Come on, do it today. Today. Come on, what's wrong with you? So let's go ahead and find out what's going on the Western Front. World War II, Western Front, 1944 to 1945, Part 1 by Eastory. So let's go ahead and boot up and suit up. And this time, join the Allies in 3, 2, 1.
June 1944. June 1944. The Allies had been long preparing to launch an invasion of German-held Europe, and now all was finally ready. For the invasion, they had gathered more than 2 million men. The Germans could only muster a force of less than half the size.
Wow.
The Allies gave the Germans the impression that they were to land on the eastern part of the channel, and the Germans deployed their strongest forces there. This lessened the German strength in Normandy, where the Allies actually intended to land. Most of the Allies landed with little difficulty. In the next few days, they completed their second objective by linking up all of their forces in the area. The Germans concentrated most of their reserves to the
Let's go get them!
eastern section to cover the way into central France. The western sector did not get enough reinforcements. The Americans broke the German line and cut off their forces around Cherbourg. The Germans pulled back and attempted to dig in around the town. But the American pursuit did not give them the time to do that, and they were forced to surrender, leaving Cherbourg in Allied hands.
Rock and roll. Let's go get them, boys. Let's just go get them.
By that time, the Germans had lost the opportunity to push the Allies into the sea. They had deployed only several 100,000 soldiers, while the Allies had already landed 1 million men. During the next month, the Allies launched several offensives. In the eastern sector, the British pushed the Germans back and gained control of Caen and the terrain around it. At the same time, the Americans crossed through difficult terrain and reached ground more favorable for starting a larger offensive. By late July, the Allies had achieved a strong superiority and were ready to launch the breakout. The strong German force in the east kept the Allied attacks at bay, but in the west, the Americans were able to break through the German lines. The German
Keep on pushing forward. Keep on gaining that ground.
divisions in the north attempted to escape the encirclement, but several of them were destroyed. The Germans now had little strength to stop the Allies, and the Americans were soon in the open country. With the front broken and their troops outnumbered, the reasonable decision for the Germans might have been to pull their forces back. However, they chose
No, they're not going to give up, Perry.
to counterattack and close the breakout forces' supply route. The Allies originally planned to concentrate on capturing the ports in Brittany, but when they realized that the main German force was not going to retreat, they turned their troops east to try to encircle the Germans. The German attempts to cut off the Allied breakout had failed.
Not going to happen.
They were able to contain the Anglo-Canadian attack from the north, but when the Americans approached from the south, the Germans had no choice but to retreat to avoid an encirclement. The withdrawal was delayed up to the last moment, and this would cost them dearly in the following weeks. A lot of the German mobile forces were able to escape the...
I'm all of a sudden getting some flashbacks in the great HBO series, Band of Brothers, which is a phenomenal series, but also the Pacific, too. That was actually pretty good as well. Go get them, boys! Knock them out!
encirclement, but most of their infantry divisions were cut off and forced to surrender. The remaining German troops now attempted to establish a new defensive line on the Seine River. However, the Allies had anticipated that. As they were closing the pocket, they had already sent their troops towards the Seine. It pushed away weak German resistance and established a bridgehead over the river. As a result, the Germans were unable to easily access the eastern part of the river. The Allies used this fact and raced east themselves. They established their positions along the eastern Seine before the Germans could dispatch significant forces to counter them. The German garrison in Paris was left isolated and surrendered to the Allies on the 25th of August.
Paris, the city of lights, has been liberated. If you've been to Paris, type your thoughts in the comment section below. What was your experience in Paris? Have you also had a chance to tour the hallowed grounds of Normandy? What was your experience like there? Please share your thoughts.
The Allies had gained the upper hand in France, and they had now established more ambitious objectives. One was to capture the main German industrial area in the Ruhr. Occupying it would severely reduce the German ability to maintain their war effort. The second objective was securing the channel ports in order to improve the Allied supply situation. In their way, there were several man-made and natural obstacles which the Germans could use for defense. The Allies' first move was an attack north into Belgium, which would move them closer to both of their objectives. The main goal of the Germans was to establish a new defensive line in the north and extract their forces intact from southern France. They deployed most of their available reserves to keep open the path of retreat. In the north, the Germans were constructing a new defensive line behind the Seine. They attempted to hold the Seine as long as possible and then pull their troops back to the new line. However, this could not be done. The Germans had not had the time to cover the eastern section of the river. The Allies crossed the river and advanced quickly northwards towards the main German defenses. Then the Allies breached the German line in the center, and the Germans had no hope of holding them back. The Germans began belatedly withdrawing to their main defenses, but by...
Right now what we're seeing here, it might look quick, but I'm betting every single minute of every single day was like a lifetime. And of course, when we were checking out the Eastern Front, I mean, that was years. This is 1944 to 1945. So already right off the bat, you know that these guys are in for one hell of an arduous march. And every inch that the Allies took from the Third Reich and Adolf Hitler and his Nazi thugs was paid dearly. And because of this, again, to the brave Allied forces that were able to liberate Paris and Europe in the long run, this was a fight for an end to the Third Reich and the Nazi regime. So even though things looks like they're moving fast, folks, don't let it fool you. A high price was paid.
By that time, the Allies had already advanced beyond them. The Germans retreated in full speed to avoid being trapped, but they were unable to save all of their forces. The Allies linked up and cut off part of their troops. The Allies continued their advance north and trapped even more Germans near the sea. The remaining Germans continued a fast withdrawal to the east. They were able to successfully reach their new defensive positions on the Siegfried Line before the Allies. With Germany itself coming under threat, the Germans would deploy most of their reserve units to the front in the following weeks. The Allies now had to choose whether to concentrate on clearing the ports or the Ruhr. They decided to go for the Ruhr. There were two main obstacles separating the Allies from the Ruhr: the Siegfried Line and the Rhine River. The Allies decided to cross them by moving north in a single operation called Market Garden.
Oh no.
In this way, they would not have to deal with the Siegfried Line, and they would be able to cross the Rhine River with a surprise airborne assault. The paratroopers would capture the two bridges over the Rhine River at Arnhem and Nijmegen. Then, with the aid of other airborne drops, the ground forces would quickly link up with them and cross the Rhine in strength. The paratroopers landed, but they were unable to capture either of the bridges. With the help of the ground forces, the Allies were able to take the bridge at Nijmegen, but by that time the Germans had fully secured Arnhem. The path over the Rhine was closed, and the Allies were only able to rescue the surviving paratroopers. During the following weeks, the German reserves reached the front. The Allies needed much more strength to breach the German defenses. In order to build it up, it was necessary to recover the channel ports and improve the supply situation. The Allies were able to capture the port of Antwerp with its docking facilities intact. However, they had then concentrated on Market Garden and had not cleared out the approaches to Antwerp, which prevented its use. The Allies first captured Boulogne and Calais, but their facilities turned out to be so damaged by the Germans that they needed to open Antwerp. By that time, the Germans had heavily fortified the Antwerp approaches. The Allies now had to launch a difficult assault, and it took them more than a month to dislodge the German defenders. Clearing the water of mines took several more weeks, and only by late November the Allies had fully restored their supply flow. During that time, their other forces were fighting on the German border. In September, the Allies attempted to breach the German defenses in 3 locations: with the Operation Market Garden and with the attacks in the north and south of the Ardennes. In the north, they had to cross the Siegfried Line. The Allies made progress through the first line of defense, but the arrival of German emergency reinforcements halted them on the second line. After waiting to replenish their supplies, the Allies cut off Aachen from the German lines and captured the town. They then began building up supplies for another attack. In the south, the events played out somewhat differently. The Germans had deployed their earlier reinforcements to this sector and set up their defenses on the Moselle River in France.
We have to remember, too, that most of Germany's forces were on the Eastern Front, getting their teeth kicked in by Stalin and the Soviets.
Allies reached the area in early September, and when they had arrived in force, they broke into the German line and captured the town of Nancy. Then the Allies had to stop the offensive for 2 months to improve their supply situation. The Allied forces in the southernmost part of the front reached the area from southern France. After the Allies had broken out of Normandy, their forces landed in the south on the 15th of August. By that time, the Germans in the south had already sent a lot of their forces to Normandy and didn't have the strength to resist the Allies.
Wow,
They began to
I never knew this about the invasion in southern France.
retreat north to the German border. The Americans began to pursue the retreating Germans. They moved north and attempted to cut the German path of retreat, but their forces were too weak to do that and they were only able to inflict some casualties. The French forces arrived on the shore and moved to secure the major harbors. The morale of the German garrisons was low and they fell after only brief resistance. The French prepared to join the pursuit on the American western flank. The American forces were continuing the pursuit, but the Germans used their tank division to blunt their advances and were able to continue the retreat. Soon, the Germans made a stand to allow the German forces retreating from southwestern France to catch up. They were able to hold the line for some time, but then were compelled to continue the retreat. At that time, the Allied forces coming from southern France linked up with those coming from Normandy. The Germans finished their retreat. During the pursuit, they had lost around half of their troops, but they had brought out enough soldiers to man their section of the main German defensive line. By early November of 1944, the Allies were about to launch a major offensive into Germany along the whole front. The end of the war had never seemed so close, but what they did not know was that Germany had used the pause in fighting to prepare its own offensive.
Which will probably be known as the Battle of the Bulge.
They planned to launch a surprise attack in the near future and knock the Allies out of the war. How the events will play out, we'll see in the next episode.
All right. Well, first of all, just when you thought he couldn't outdo himself, he did so again, especially with the detailed maps of what's happening between the Allies and the Nazis, of course. And look, the Western Front. Many brave people sacrificed their lives in order to the liberation of France and, to a greater extent, all of Europe from the Third Reich. And I have to say, one thing I'm rather surprised about, and I hope to maybe all of you can help us out for videos that might give us more detailed information, because we're not going to get it from the History Channel. They're going to tell us about aliens or Bigfoot and aliens. But the southern invasion of France, I never knew that. And hey, this channel's called Americans Learn, and that really threw me off. I am unfamiliar with it. And if there's anybody here in our awesome viewing audience that knows a little bit more about it, well, then type in the comment section below. Until then, drink water, keep on winning, and I'm loving all this stuff from Eastory. What more can he not do? This is some good stuff, and I'm looking forward to checking out more of his work. So, hey, do me a favor. Support the original content creator. It's important for us to support dedicated channels that cover history, because Discovery or the History Channel don't do that. So, come on. Do the right thing. Support the original content creator. Until then, I'm up out of here, and victory. We march to Berlin. Peace.